and you should be ready to go.
All right. Hey, thanks everybody for coming here tonight. This is the second class of 3. Tonight we're talking about defining your brand, right? It always seems, I don't know, I always feel like it seems kind of corporate or something when we talk about defining your brand, branding, brand marketing. And so I'll dispel that a bit and hopefully chart you on a course where you can kind of think about, hey, how do I want to present myself to the world? And that's really what we're talking about here with defining your brand, both how we're going to do it, how we define it, and then what are some of the things we could do tactically to kind of present ourselves the way we want. If you weren't here before, my name is Ryan Pesch. I'm an extension educator in ag business management. So I really do focus on direct farm marketing, assisting anybody from, livestock producers that are, selling broilers to, selling beef by the piece, to the quarters, to market gardeners, people that do cut flowers, anybody that's selling direct to a customer. And so I always say there's other people in extension that can help you with some of these production issues. Don't ask me about the bugs, ask me about how to better sell it, right? Just did a farm to school workshop today where, again, I was talking about, how do we create a good buying selling relationship between you as a producer and that end buyer, in this case, a food service director in school. Part of my major qualification, I'd say, other than being a talkative extension educator, is I've also been a commercial vegetable operator now for about 20 years. And so up top, you see the workforce at Lida Farm. But yep, I do CSA. I've done farmers market, farm stand, as you see here, sold to grocery, all this kind of stuff. So I kind of know the ropes, if you will. So a little bit of agenda here. I like to keep these things short and sweet, and I will leave time at the end just for whatever questions are on your mind that relate to the topic. And I managed to pull that off last time, so I know we can pull it off this time. So I'll just do a little reminder about the class organization, just for a slide. And then we're going to talk today about kind of trying to help define our brand by looking at our customer journey. That is, where do we interface with customers? Talk about how best to define your brand, some activity we have with that. And then, branding, I should say promotional activities, really are very tactical, right? So a lot of times branding things get quickly into like, oh, do this and push this button on Facebook and stuff. I can talk more broadly about tactics. It's a pretty wide menu, but it definitely does get tactical. And so we're going to get into some of that. So this is a quick reminder. Just we're in the second class of 3. The first one we did about defining your niche. Today we're talking about brand. Next week we're talking about pricing. And so this is just a free course that we're doing, and it does have a workbook. Rick has a link both to this workbook as well as this direct marketing survey. Hey, it's a free course. The only thing I ask of you is 2 things. 1, try applying this information to your own operation. That's what the workbook is there for. Just print it out. I'm a big fan of just scribbling things. You're just scribbling ideas. You're doing back of the envelope calculations, and you're trying to just get a direction, maybe a new direction for this season, or if you're just starting out, getting that initial direction about where you want to head with this selling direct to customer thing. And the second thing is, please fill out this direct marketing survey. Again, this is really what I'm specialized in, but I've been doing this job in particular for 1 year, and I really want to know more about how people are direct marketing right now, and what's working, what's not working, and what might be most useful to you. I've been in extension for 20 years. I've done a lot of this marketing kind of stuff, but right now I have the luxury of being dedicated to this kind of work. So I really want to hear from you about your experience. So last time I talked about the components of farm marketing. And like I said marketing, a lot of times people think advertising, and marketing is so much more than advertising. I've always played around with these 5 major components that I think are most important to direct farm marketers if you're selling direct to customers.
Why? Please send it.
if you're, you have to mute yourself. Somebody's unmuted. So I highlighted here in green the three things that we're going to hit on here today. Yep, it is about image and promotion. How do we find our brand? How do we promote ourselves or promote our brand? It is also merchandising, which is an important component, and then customer service. These things seem to kind of fit together well enough that I thought I would just cover all of them in this section, this class. So, brand. I like to say this: you can either define your brand or be defined. Okay, so sometimes you're like, okay, I don't want to do all this fancy marketing branding thing. I'm not an online influencer. I don't care that much about my image. But even if you say you don't do a logo, you don't do any of this kind of stuff, you will end up getting defined. You'll end up with a brand anyways, right? You're going to have a default brand. So like I always say, my biggest weakness is I'm super disorganized. It's amazing I get here, but I'm really disorganized. So if I didn't have my wife, I don't know if the farm would really work, but it would be something like I would be defined. If I didn't try to define my brand, I would be defined as this really talkative, disorganized, organic vegetable farmer. I mean, that's what I would end up with. And again, if you're not defining yourself just based on how people are perceiving you, you will get defined. So my main story here for you today, my main point is define yourself the way you want to be defined and presented, and your business defined and branded the way you want to present it. Otherwise, you will end up with whatever the perception is. One way of really thinking through how we present ourselves and how we might present ourselves differently or kind of interface with our customers is to think of this notion of a customer journey, right? Sometimes people might think, oh boy, it's just simple, Ryan. I sell something and people buy it. Well, yes, it can be that simple. But honestly, all research is pointing that there's oftentimes many other unseen little points where people are basically understanding and making decisions about what kind of business you are and what quality of a business you are, right? If we look here, we see this line that goes from awareness to advocacy, right? Awareness is, boy, I heard about this one, I don't know, flower farm on the other side of the county. That's interesting. I wonder what they do. I wonder how they sell. But there's something that got into that mind of the customer that farm exists. Second is this issue of consideration. Consideration as a customer, I might go on, I might find their website, right? Or I might find their brochure somewhere. I might find that they put up a flyer somewhere, right? And on there, I'm going to consider the product. I'm a customer. I'm just like, I'm on the site. Oh, I see what they do. They do subscriptions. Oh, how much is that? Is that expensive? Do they deliver near me? Right? As a customer, I'm sort of checking them out. I'm researching the product. I'm visiting them online. A lot of us, we might have a physical store. A lot of us don't, right? So it isn't like a retail establishment where you walk into the store and you check out what they have going on. And then based on your research, you might take that next step as you make a purchase. Right now, I'm in the midst of CSA membership selling. So people are coming to the site. They might see me on a Facebook, or they might have gotten an email from me, and they're going on to the website and they're saying, do I want to sign up for a full share or a half share? What do I get? Who are these people? And they sort of check us out, right? And then they either do or do not have some product satisfaction. They might say, oh, I thought that the CSA thing would be good and it looked good, but actually this Ryan Pesch guy, he's a disaster. This was the worst thing I ever did. It was a waste of money, right? Or they say, oh boy, this was incredible. They said recipes, and it was neat to kind of hear what was going on at the farm, and it was different stuff that I never purchased before. It was really a nice journey for me. And then lastly is this advocacy part, which is like, will that customer then recommend you to others, right? Do you get positive word of mouth or do you get negative word of mouth, right? The customer journey could go south. It's not always positive, but typically we see a similar kind of pattern to how customers experience a business. And this can be a big brand or it can be a small farm, but there's points along the way. So if you think about how you present yourself, how do you communicate with customers along this journey? How do you get them to first find you? How do they kind of consider your products and make a decision about whether they buy or not? And once they are purchasing, how easy is that purchase? What is their relationship with you? Is there a relationship with you over time, like me in a CSA season, right? What about once they're not your customer anymore, or they were a customer? How do you make them a follow-up customer? How do you retain them? How do you get them to buy again, right? So this is sort of how you're presenting yourself and communicating with those customers over time. In the workbook, there's this one activity. It's been around for a while. I used to use it in a customer service training. It's called Moments of Truth, right? So basically, we're going to take that timeline from awareness to advocacy, from the time that they become a customer to when they're post-customer. And what you're going to do is you're just going to put little hash marks around here and try to identify every single moment when a customer is going to come in contact with your business or your brand, all the way through purchase and all the way through post-purchase, right? And the idea behind this is to identify those points so that we can manage those points. In all honesty, at each one of those points, you could either go negative or go positive with a customer. If you're striking out, right? If somebody's sending you an email, that's their point of contact with you, right? They find my website. Next point, they send me an email and I don't respond to them for 6 weeks. Lo and behold, it's probably a pretty negative management of that moment of truth. But first, we have to identify each and every one of them. Some are more important than others, but play this game and say, can I identify all those different points where I'm connecting with the customers? And once you do that, then what we do is we can sort and prioritize. I'm a huge fan of this one book called Lean Farm. It's by an author named Ben Hartman, who's a vegetable operator in Indiana, like Goshen, Indiana, I believe. And he talks about lean farming in the same way that like Toyota created lean manufacturing. And a lot of times, it's a really neat book because it's sort of like you wouldn't think about lean manufacturing principles as they apply to farms. But he has this great part in there when it talks about marketing and what customers are looking for. About part of lean is just saying, where exactly do I create value for the customer? And if there's some activity I'm doing and some effort I'm doing that's not creating value for the customer, let's throw it out. It's just waste. It's in the way. Everything should be creating some kind of value for that customer. And so in this moment of truth exercise, if say we have 20 different points, I always feel like there's, for any business, a point that's more important than others, that's very primary. And so I was trying to sketch out that for myself, like, okay, for CSA, where is that really major moment of truth? There's other moments of truth. They're getting an e-newsletter, they're signing up, all this stuff. But hey, when they're opening that CSA box, and what am I going for? When am I making value? I'm making value for that customer when there's clean, colorful, and abundant product in that box. That is where the rubber meets the road. In the exact same way, you go to a restaurant, there's that moment of truth when that plate gets in front of you, right? Yep, the hostess could have screwed it up. Server could have screwed it up even before you got seated and all that. There's other moments of truth, but there's really a big moment of truth when that meal comes, especially if you're going to some fancy restaurants. Like this is it. This is the main course. This is what it's all about. Yep, there's another moment of truth. Say the CSA, my CSA newsletter. For some, this is important. For others, not. There may be a moment of truth there that's more important for some than others. But if I look at the farmer's market, and you entered my farm stand, is there clean, colorful, and abundant product? If I look at the farm stand looking, and people come to the stand. Is there clean, colorful, abundant variety? I mean, and when I go through this exercise, I keep coming to these same things that I need to do and need to do well consistently to make value for my customers. One way of sorting out these moments of truth. We can either tackle them all and say we're gonna kick butt on each one of them, or we might sort it and say, where's the ones where I'm making the most value for my customer? And really, really focus in and make sure we're doing this well, and then improve on all these other things. In ideal world, we have kind of this nice seamless experience for the customer, where they feel like that was wonderful. There was no hiccup along the way at all. So just emphasizing, it makes me think is if my creating value is that clean, abundant variety. For me, this is why I spend 30% of my time in post-harvest handling, in washing and packing and sorting produce. I've run into plenty of market gardeners that are just like, hey, you know what? That just sounds like work. I'll sell it anyways. I'm just going to throw this thing in a bin and get it to the market. Myself, I honestly do. I probably spend about 30% of my time in a packing shed, organizing, washing, and packing. This is my son, who's now 17. So cute when he was like 7, washing radishes with me. This is the packing line for CSA day on the right. And so my putting that time into that post-harvest handling is big, because that is where I'm really creating value for customers in my mind. And again, this is that lean farm. If you're looking for a read, I read it once a year because I'm disorganized. I probably should read it twice a year. I always feel like I'm going to turn over a new leaf, and maybe I never do, or I get a little bit better each year. But I'm a really big fan of this book. I can't say enough good things about it. So for us, hey, what does this look like? It is about that clean, quality produce. Our brand is that. That's the product, right? If we fall short on that, it's like Ford not putting out nice cars. They can do a lot of other neat things, but it's the car that's a big thing, right? Our own tagline, you see at the top here. So over on the right, we were certified organic for 5 or 6 years, I forget. And we're not anymore. It's something that died during the pandemic. But here's our logo. If you see at the top, our tagline that I chose was "Good food, grown well." Being in the organic food movement, sustainable agriculture, I always feel like it gets kind of confusing, right? Oh, should I do biodynamic? Is it certified organic? Is it this, that? I don't know. I mean, I think for customers, sometimes it's like, oh, this is hurting my head. And considering that I'm trying to sell to kind of a wide berth of people in a rural community, I'm like, let's just cut through the noise. Let's keep it simple. My tagline is "Good food grown well." I've just used that probably now for, 12 years or something. Oh, here's my son that you saw in the other picture of this guy. There he is when he's like, 7, 6. And here he is there, 16, selling with me at the farmer's market. So, yes, we did do organic methods, but we still do organic methods. And yes, I think it's an important part of our brand that we're an independent family operation. That's why you see pictures of me and my kids in the newsletter and in social and all the rest, right? This is part of my brand. This is what Lida Farm is about, right? So we want to, for you want to get to this point. It's like, what is my brand? What is it that I'm trying to get across that's really important to me that I want customers to know? So also in the workbook is this area where you can kind of, just like little text boxes that kind of help you define your brand. It asks about your values. It asks you about your standout identity. So what do you do better than your competitors? Or how are you different from your competitors? You can imagine that, you go to a big farmer's market and there's, 6 different meat vendors there. Like what differentiates one versus the other? There's one grass-fed and there's one pastured but grain finished. There's one all organic. Is one got it's all about the flavor, and they're doing a sample every other week. So what is that thing that helps you differentiate yourself from others? And part of it can be just your personalities. Part of it can be you. right? Your ability as a salesperson in connecting with people and such. We talk about your image, what's important to you about how you conduct your business, key messages. So, what are if there were 3 details it says here that you want people to know about your business, what would you want them to know? What are the 3 key messages you want people to know? And then 2 that are on the other page are brand personality and your tagline. You heard my tagline, good food, grown well. Good food, grown well. I was going to show this video, Rick. I know there's, let's see. I think I got to do something to make sure that
When you may want to unshare and then share it again. There's a little
Gotcha.
checkbox when you share
Gotcha.
to share the sound.
Okay, hit that
So-
checkbox, Ryan. Oop, let's stop sharing.
You get it. Yep.
Let's
Now
hit this.
reshare it.
Share.
And there's a
I
little
see a
check.
share sound. I got you. I knew there was a way. Optimize for video clip. I don't. Okay, here we go. So, I had some people make this video about our operation and me 2 years ago, and my wife said, "Boy, they really captured your personality." So every business has a personality, and I have a personality, and you have a personality. And so I just thought, here's a good example of kind of a piece of branding that's kind of fun that I can share here. Oh,
We haven't seen how bad this is going to get yet. I mean, everybody's talking about the cost of food. There's not going to be any food.
You've probably seen this footage of dead cows on your feed. It goes by so fast, I almost missed it. But I'm
Click on
glad I
skip
kept
ad
watching
there,
because
lower right.
oh, I can. Goodness, skip the ad. Well, there we see it. That little bar is in my way. Okay, here we go.
You know what? Life is better when I'm not eating cardboardy tomatoes. But the community just sort of stuck. Like, oh, it is what it is. We're not, what are we supposed to do? How do you better promote or grow sustainable agriculture, organic agriculture in a region or in a state? It just isn't that simple. But I think sometimes it's like, we're just this little town. Nothing really all that exciting happens here. So for me, I always think like, well, why not? Why can't we do this? This is very chefy. And the carrot, and one of those. You know what? Good food doesn't need to be complicated. Again, that whole organic thing, it's biodynamic, whatever, it gets confusing. Let's just keep it simple. I think it's all in the flavor. I prefer the term the good food movement. It's a movement towards fresher product, better food. It's the site of the farm stand. It's the sign about my family on this place where they can see with their 2 eyes where that tomato came from. And it should feel good. It creates a small little change in people where they're like, huh, there is something different. And it kind of attaches them to their food in a little bit of a way. I really dig melons. A lot of times I'm just out of time or I'm out of energy. I think I don't have any gas. But in the evening, having gone from task to task to task, and you're kind of body tired and maybe a little mentally tired, that's just point at which your mind can let go and you actually see the beauty that surrounds you all the time. We can do this here. The world should be rich and interesting, and we should be independent and be able to create good things here in our community. Why are we sitting here stuck in neutral all the time? It really isn't that hard. Just push it in a drive and give it a whirl.
Hey, hey, cool, right? Oh, don't play it again, Ryan. Oh no. Oh, he's an idiot. Oh, this is me on forget that. Okay. All right. Go back to this screen. Well, that was kind of fun, right? That's something that my initiative foundation did. They were just profiling people that were involved in the food movement and other things. But those guys that did that video, they typically do commercials. They're doing commercials now for Caribou Coffee. So I never would have afforded that video, but somebody else paid for it. So that worked out. So a little bit kind of it sort of ties in sort of like what I'm all about in terms of like abundant, colorful, good variety produce is this issue about merchandising, right? So whether you're a produce person like me and you're trying to merchandise and present product in this kind of colorful, fun way, or you're a livestock operator who's trying to present a meat product that looks appealing, it looks good, it's got a clear label and these kinds of things. We want to kind of think about it. We want to think about how we present the product that we're trying to sell. And if done right, it reinforces what we're trying to say with our own brand, right? So good elements of any kind of merchandising is clear pricing, right? You see this is an older picture. So at the time I was making little signs with crayons when my kids were little, but you have clear pricing, you have clear differentiation between product A and product B. And you also have do whatever you can to kind of build in height and build in color palette, right? Can we have color breaks? I used to be a greengrocer down in the city, so I think about color breaks all the time, right? Which apple should go to next to which apple? And how do we present this product in a way that it really shines? That somebody says, yeah, I want that. I want that quart of heirloom tomatoes, Ryan. It looks beautiful. Let's do it. And so here in the back is me at the Lakes Area Farmers Market in Detroit Lakes some years ago. Here in the front, this is me just last summer selling in front of the Manna Food Co-op in downtown Detroit Lakes, which is a much smaller stand, right? I'd gotten up to doing a whole horseshoe with 3 tables, but that's sort of a little more of a modest stand. And so some of it does come down back to our product mix, like we were talking about last time. What do we want to raise and grow and present that really helps differentiate ourselves? And so for me, when I'm doing crop planning, I do the 80-20 rule in the world of produce. And part of this is because I'm a CSA operator. As a CSA operator, you need the standards, right? We need the standards to fill out each box, and everybody likes the standards, right? Pretty much everybody's like, I like bicolor sweet corn. I like a slicing tomato. I like red potatoes. I mean, these are just standards, at least Midwestern standards. That doesn't count in other countries or something. And then the 20% is the sprinkling of the weird stuff that helps you kind of differentiate yourself or stand out, right? I'm here in northern Minnesota. There aren't a lot of Italians clamoring for eggplant, but I grow eggplant, right? That's beautiful eggplant in the front. And you'll get people to stop. And last week we talked about our customers and the Volvo drivers. They like picking up eggplant. The Buick drivers, not so much. The minivan drivers, not so much. Same with fresh fennel or some Asian greens, grown Mizuna. Any number of these things is a way to kind of enrich in the palette when you're doing merchandising, and it might help you stand out. I think we talked a little bit about this before. I like to use the term, you're looking to sell, think about what is your gateway drug to your customers. And so for me, that's mixed cherry tomatoes here on the bottom left. And so I could sell these like crazy all the time. And it's basically become a signature crop for me, as have these smaller melons, both that are yellow and orange. The other part when we think about merchandising is how can we think about turning one crop into multiple products? So this is probably 15 years ago. I'm at the Madison Farmers Market in Wisconsin. This is a wonderful farmers market. And Driftless Organics was there. At the time, or no, this was after I was a greengrocer at Mississippi Market, but I knew then we used to carry their product and stuff in the store. And I highlight this area over here on the left, in part because this is nothing but potatoes. There's just potatoes over here. And they're potatoes in many different forms. And so part about merchandising is, how can I take one crop and present it as multiple products? And a lot of times for produce people, that's a lot of grading and sorting. For a lot of livestock people, that's like bundling, right? We see a lot of these different meat bundles. What are the things that I can that will attract some and not attract others, right? So it's like, how do we bundle these things together to sell them? But if we look at it over here on the right, here's another example of somebody doing the exact same thing. You see these bigger baskets in the front, probably they might even be 10-pound baskets of red and white potatoes. And then we've got these smaller baskets, 5-pounders. And then probably over there we have maybe some quart size, B size potatoes. And then we've got the cute little small potatoes, maybe in pints over there. What this allows us to do is to give a wider mix of goods on the table for sale. We fill out a table in a display. And also, we also give multiple customers multiple price points, right? Remember my Buick drivers, they're not interested in buying 10 pounds of potatoes. They would never buy 10 pounds of potatoes, but they might be interested in buying a couple pounds of potatoes. You know what I mean? So they'd be interested in the quart. Whereas my minivan driver would love to get this 10 pounds at a reasonable price, or the 5 pounds at a reasonable price. And so this is for you to kind of sort out as you think about your products that we're selling. How do I merchandise these things well? Oh, and then we can get cute. We mix the colors, right? So the Volvo drivers really love the mixed colors thing. Just merchandising potatoes, just an example here. I don't need to go into this. You're like, this guy's obsessed about selling potatoes. But oftentimes people will just take the 50 pounds of potatoes and start throwing them on the table, or take the whole bin and throw the bin up on the table and just stick a little sign that says $1 a pound. Here you go, 80 cents a pound, $1.25 a pound, whatever. And I guarantee you what people do is they're going to just pick through them the size that they like. There's going to be 5 pounds of uglies left that you'll never sell. Instead, let's grade and sort. Let's grade and sort the sizes. Let's grade and sort the amounts. And instead of doing $45 in sales like you see at the top, if you look at the bottom here, just doing the math with the same 50 pounds and grading and sorting, we're at $88. And so this, I think, when it comes especially to a farmer's market situation, how can we better merchandise our product, or better merchandise the crop to have more products, to have more sales, to reach more customers? Another part about merchandising is a logo, right? I call this the magic trick. So even if I'm not there especially if I'm not there, right? You need some way of identifying yourself, especially if you're doing some kind of wholesale. I sold to Man a Food Co-op, a grocery store in downtown Detroit Lakes here for a long time. I'm on the board and all this kind of stuff, but I've also, sold through other avenues where I really want my product to be presented, and I'm not sitting there at a farmer's market to sit and talk about it. And one quick identifier is, get these cute little logo stickers. I buy mine from Sticker Mule. You ever heard of Sticker Mule? $181 for 1,000. That's what I paid for however many rolls of 2-inch sticker labels. So they're really inexpensive. It's a great way of just sort of presenting yourself well. Last part about merchandising, I think, is you, right? Especially in a face-to-face situation, you could chalk this up as like, I don't know, just good sales personship or something, or it's a part of merchandising. But I always say, like, hey, do you want to buy from these two over here, or these two? I want to shop with the fun guys over here. I will say, I sometimes call it farmers market theater. I have no problem bantering at farmers markets. It sort of fits my personality. But even if you aren't just this uber talkative person like myself, to find that way to connect with people, right? You can be the taciturn Minnesotan with dry jokes, or You have a presence of some sort. But one reason people come to farmers markets and to buy from farmers face to face is A, they want to know you, but it's this experience, right? They're there on that Saturday morning for the experience of it all. They're there with their neighbors. They're there with all these different colors and smells. And that's what makes it kind of wonderful. So if you're new to markets, just find that kind of spirit, if you will, like, hey, this is sort of just fun to be here. And I've always found that if it looks like you as a vendor are having a good time, your customers have a good time, right? If it seems like you're like, I'm all bored and I don't want to be here kind of thing, you're not going to impress them. Like you have to impress them, but it's more enjoyable for me when I'm having fun at a farmer's market, and it's more fun for the customers. It brings some life to the market. So a little bit about marketing assets and just sales, I guess. There's this term, sometimes our real professionals use the term marketing assets. Sometimes you'll hear the term marketing materials. It's just the form that you're creating in order to promote your brand or to get some communication to people. And so there's a lot of different flavors of this, if you will. In the world of print, you can have print business cards, you can have brochures, you can have flyers, you can have postcards, you can have rack cards, you can have, it just goes on and on, right? And these are just sort of the different print marketing assets. Online, we have blogs, we have websites, we have e-newsletters, and then social, it just goes on and on, right? Certainly Facebook and Instagram are our two most well-trafficked tools. So I saw Rachel from Minnesota Grown do a great presentation at the Fruit and Vegetable Growers, and it made a great compelling case. Like, this is where people are at, Facebook and Instagram. There's all these other little social media tools that we could get engaged in. We can all go do TikTok and all this kind of stuff. But if this is where the people are, these are two places that we ought to be if we're going to be on social. But really, this whole idea behind this is trying to connect with people to sell them stuff. Okay, just don't get it. There's so many different flavors. It's easy to get kind of caught up in the details. And so my thought here is to kind of reel your mind in and say, look, hey, at the end of the day, I want to get in touch with people and sell them stuff. And if we're talking about branding, I do suggest that you think about, the media that you choose that most kind of befits your brand. And you may get some ideas about that as we move through it. This is where I give my little stump speech that I know the whole world has gotten into social media as a way of connecting, but I am 120% convinced that one of the best things you can do as a small business is to build your own customer list. Yep, you can get connected with somebody through your Facebook page, no doubt, but you don't necessarily have their contact. You don't have their phone number. You don't have their email. You don't have their address. I really feel strongly in part because there's always this shifting sands about social media. Facebook just changes their algorithm a little bit, and you're like, I don't know, I used to connect with people. It used to work, and now it doesn't work. Well, you know what? One of your best ways you could do it is to build your own customer list. And it could just be an email list. But in this way, no matter what happens in the wild, wild west online, you will have your contacts. You will have some way of getting hold of people. And so I've done this a number of different ways, but it really is sort of a base thing for any kind of person in sales. Build a customer list. Right on you'll see it straight on on the front page of my website. Join my email list, right? I got 1,100 people that are signed up to receive this e-newsletter. And they're hearing from me directly. Yep, MailChimp helps me do that, but I will always have their email. I used to do a dairy route. I used to put this out on my table right at the farmer's market. Hey, we've got these things for sale. Give me your contact information. We started building a list that way. So you can kind of do it old school, just bootstrapping sales contacts, or you can do it, with some way of collecting people's email. In terms of creating our image, I really think, there are two things that are kind of the base, if you will. One is a name, and I'll talk a little bit about doing your certificate of assumed name here. And second, the logo. Just a little bit about my own experience. We went around and around on a name for about 6 months. And in the end, I really felt like a geographic name was something that literally put us on the map, right? I live in Lida Township, near Lake Lida over there. So a lot of people can kind of put that in their mind in my area. If I'm only marketing here in this really Becker County, Otter Tail County area, hey, people will know where I'm at. They know where I'm coming from. And so Lida Farm was born. And second is creating a logo. It took me probably 6 or 7 years until I got a logo. I kind of wish I'd done it sooner. I sold at the time in those beginning years with a guy named Rick Julian, who was Lake Ida Apple Farm, IDA, not LIDA. And I can't begin to tell you how many people started to talk to me about buying apples. And I'm like, no, I'm not Rick from Lake Ida Apple Farm. I'm from Lida Farm. And so once I got my logo well established, I didn't have that issue anymore. Again, just a small way of differentiating myself, but it certainly did work. And the way we did it is I was always inspired by like this WPA style that you saw in like the 1930s. And so you see over here a WPA poster. And I just did a nice image search. I just started looking through images to say, I don't know, what are these elements here that I like? What are there other people that have logos that are kind of inspired by the WPA that have that kind of look? And I found one that I'm like, oh, I really like the look of this thing. And then a CSA member of mine, I gave him a half share for free to do a logo for me. And that's how that logo got made. I would say that if you don't have a logo yet and you're thinking about doing that, I would suggest looking at a logo design contest. I've known at least half a dozen farm operators who have done a logo design. You might have heard of like 99 Designs, but there's other ones that do it. If you just Google design contest, you'll see you're going to put in information about this is the kind of personality I want my logo to have, or this is the values or things I want to get across. And what you're going to get are a bunch of draft submissions to you about potential logos. And then you get to go through the process of saying, I like this one, I don't like that one, I like this one, I don't like that one. And a designer will work with you to kind of come up with your own logo design. I think it's a really neat thing. And you can get a designer could be in France or something doing one for you, but that's definitely worth checking out if you need to do that. One thing that we have going for us, I think more so than any other small business, is we have wonderful content. As farm operators, we have great content. It should authentically match your brand, right? And then it's about inserting it into whatever media you want, right? Whether you're Facebook or on your traditional website or in your e-newsletter. Look, who doesn't like baby lambs, right? If you're a lamb operator, this is wonderful. This is a great picture. And people love this stuff, just like they like cats on YouTube. People like cute pictures of baby farm animals. You can't go wrong. Here's Rachel Sanderud, who's a cut flower operator. Again, beautiful content. I mean, you're a flower farmer. You have wonderful, colorful content, whether it's beautiful images or video. How can you get that across? Because you're really presenting your product and you're presenting your farm and you're presenting yourself with your product. Very, very few other businesses have this kind of beautiful, rich content. Most people are running small businesses out of, their big box stores and half deserted strip malls. I mean, it's what do they got for content? Not nearly enough, or not nearly enough good stuff. We got the good stuff, so figure out how to share it with people. A few examples of my own print materials that I've used. Like I said, I mean, marketing is about being tactical, right? Think about your customer. You think about who you want to connect with. you can come up with the appropriate material to make that connection. Our farm stand, when we first opened, was the 1 year we did a postcard, and we only did it locally. We're just trying to get very local people here. So tactically, local people, I'm going to put up some posters and I'm going to put up some postcards. And that's what I did. Why the farm stand now open, right? For CSA, it's more involved. It's more complicated product. If you're a livestock operator, right, it's more complicated to sell a whole animal to somebody with all the different cuts and everything. So I've always put out a brochure. Last couple of years, I've had enough people on the wait list. I haven't actually printed the brochure. I put out information via email, but for the longest time, I did a print brochure, and it was great. In a farmer's market situation, I'd have that brochure and I could hand it to people, something I could physically hand to people. I've used other templates over the years, as Buy Fresh, Buy Local campaign, Minnesota Grown campaign. There's other shells that we can use to kind of, even if we're not ready to start making some of this stuff ourselves, we're like, I don't know if I'm good at that. Hey, there's other materials we can use. Besides print materials, signage is actually bigger than you think, in my humble opinion. I actually did some research some years ago in Renville County with the farmers markets there. And we did intercept surveys with farmers market, or just customers of the farmers markets. And the one thing that showed up more so than anything was the number one way that people first found the farmers market was signage, signage, signage. It was way, way bigger than any ad those guys were running, than any flyer they were putting up. It was signage. And so that's obviously key for a farmer's market. You want that visibility, right? How do you physically make yourself more visible? Here's an example of the sign. I have to retire, so it's not certified anymore. That we had in our farm stand in Pelican. And then over on the right, after this is just this very authentic painted farm sign for the farm stand. I did that intentionally, right? I could have gotten one that was printed and real professional. But honestly, this works better. Why? Because it's a authentic farm stand, and you should have an authentic farm sign for a very authentic farm stand. And in that case, you paint it by hand. I was once in a workshop where somebody was a graphic designer, and they held up two signs, one that was hand painted and then one that was printed. And on the one side, it said, he held up the sign, and on the sign it said, fresh eggs. Which one would you go with? And everybody pointed to the hand painted fresh egg sign. And then he flipped it over and it said brain surgery. And you know what? The hand painted sign didn't look nearly as good anymore. But again, we're not in brain surgery, right? We're not in this professional business. We're into this very authentic kind of real goods kind of business. And a hand painted sign works great. Come into port here. We're almost out of time. Is no matter what the content, no matter what the brand you're coming up with that you're looking to emphasize, you need to find what your medium is. So again, I think nowadays a lot of people will reach for, Facebook business page. Yes, maybe it should be there. I myself, and you can hear I'm a little jaundiced about social media lately. Myself, I like long form content, and I found that the people that are my CSA members really enjoy this longer form content. So I've been doing a blog since 2006, I think. So it's been a long time. And so I like writing, and I like being pretty human, pretty trying to be a little bit funny, a little bit sort of news from the farm, if you will, in my newsletter. Kind of like this is typical of me, duct taping my way through endless summer as a title for that week. Just trying to get across sort of like what's it like here out at Lyda Farm, my ideas on things, and it definitely seems to land very well. I do send that out via MailChimp each and every week. So for 16 weeks, I send it out via MailChimp as an RSS feed. So that's how that works. Regardless of what your media is, what makes good marketing materials? Yep, they should match your image. Should have clear contact information. This is my pet peeve. It should have a very clear call to action. You are doing this because you want to sell something. Don't be all Minnesotan. Be clear with people. Say, hey, if you want to buy a quarter of beef, call me at this number, email me, give them some pricing, make clear, how do I buy this stuff? Go to this one website. That's where I sell it. Yep, explain how, be visual, right? Again, we have great content. We have great visuals we can use. And then lastly, be consistent. If you notice, even on my little hand-painted sign, I use the same red and black color scheme. You can have this consistent palette at the very least in your branding, and people start to say, oh, that's who that's Slida Farm, I see. And it starts to kind of click with folks. And all right, here we go. Too many avenues, help, what do I do? This is, in the world of market or promotions and branding, this is this typical time versus money rub. I just say, hey, budget something in proportion to your sales. If you're sitting there and you're like, Ryan, I got $8,000 in sales or $7,000 in sales last year, I'm not putting $1,200 in the Facebook ads. No, I don't think you should. But there might be some basic components of your branding that you might put in place. You might invest $400 here, $300 there, and that's a good place for you to be. And you keep working at that year after year. You get a little bit better with your branding. At the very basic end, you ought to register your name. This is called a certificate of assumed name. You do it at the Minnesota Secretary of State. It's like $40. You should, at the very basic end, I suggest a logo and some kind of consistent color palette. 3, free and low cost promotions tailored to your outlet, right? Signage at the farmer's market. A vinyl sign is inexpensive. It depends where you're at. And that goes all the way up. There's a whole bunch of stuff in between there. It goes all the way up to a professional designer, where I guarantee you can spend thousands, if not tens of thousands, in order to develop your brand, develop those marketing materials. So in the end, this is what I like to say. Let's keep it. That's a whirlwind about branding and promotional tactics and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, we are farmers who market. We're not marketers who farm. Let's keep it in balance. Let's keep it in perspective. Yes, we do need to influence, but we should not be influencers, right? So the idea is not to be 8 hours a day making up your new podcast. Remember, we still have to spend 8 hours a day weeding the garden. We have to spend 8 hours a day feeding some animals, and this kind of stuff. And so let's keep it in balance, right? I find it very easy for people to get really caught up in all the details of this kind of stuff, and find themselves dumping hours into, social media land. And they're like, oh, I don't know, I'm all confused. I don't feel like I'm getting anywhere. Well, let's focus on what matters. To me, it's clean, abundant produce, remember? And I can't get that if I don't put in the time weeding and getting that and washing that produce and doing that kind of stuff well. Yes, I definitely do a lot of marketing, but I just got to keep it in balance, and so should you. So thank you. I'm going to stop this sharing, and then let's get some questions. See, Ryan, you only have 5 minutes, but I'm happy to stick around longer. So what are your thoughts? What are your questions? You can put them in the chat. Rick's watching the chat.
Yeah, there are a couple. Way back from the beginning, can you give us a contact person in Extension or other venue to find out more about liability insurance for direct marketing?
Oh, yes. Liability insurance. I deal with some of that. You can send me an email. But also there's Cindy Hale and Amy Johnston. Please send me an email. I'll connect you with them. They work expressly with food entrepreneurs and have especially cottage food producers and such, and that might also be the case. But I definitely have some ideas, and I can get you going at least. Yeah, but please send me an email, pesh@umn.edu.
Another question is, in today's world, would you caution family farms from using their children's faces in your advertisements?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I don't want to sound cavalier by the, no, I seem too excited about, but again, it goes with this point. If you think about, you go through that one worksheet and you talk about your values, what's important to you and stuff. I hear this many times when farmers are talking about, what's important about your farm. And I often will hear, it's a family farm. It's an independent family farm. Awesome. I want to see the family, right? I want to see the family. And so my own take is that it seems as if the whole world is so online that by presenting yourself and your family online, especially in a very professional manner for your business, you're not overexposing kids. If anything, my son over on Snapchat's more overexposed being on Snapchat at all hours of the night than he is in a picture helping to sort of show what the farm is about. So I'm personally not too concerned, but obviously you need to go with your own risk level on that.
Another question is, why are you no longer certified organic? Any advice for those wanting to become certified?
Yeah, I'm no longer, for a long time, I'll go way back. I trained initially as an apprentice for 2 years on an organic farm. So I was always committed to organic methods. When I came up here, I always felt a little chided because I have like some of my fellow vendors are just like, well, it's pretty much organic. And then they're talking to me about using Roundup in the next sentence. So I was like, you know what? If I'm the one upholding the gold standard, the best way of doing that is to do the gold standard. Let's get certified. What drove me out of it is, I think all of us sort of lost our minds to some degree during the pandemic. There's a lot of pressures, and there's a lot of pressure on me with our farm operation, and something had to go. For a diversified vegetable operation, certification can get very, very detailed. I have 500 and some beds. What was that? Anyways, there's way too many beds. You got to track individual beds and all this kind of stuff. I was always jealous of crop operators that are like, hey, I have a 40-acre farm. Here's the seed I planted. Here's the inputs I put on, and this is when I harvested. But you need that level of detail for every single crop. So when you do 30 odd crops, it starts to drive you a little bit nuts. And during the pandemic, I'm like, I don't know, a whole bunch of things are driving me nuts. I gotta get out of something. My advice is for anybody's, talk to another producer that's like you, that already is certified, and say, who do they certify with? How does it fit in with their operation? I would not suggest it, say for the world of produce, I do not suggest that for year 1 or 2. You have other things that you really need to be concentrated on and building skills on, other than just falling into a paperwork trap. And the last thing I'd say is, for myself, I direct market everything. Other than the stuff that I bring to the co-op, I direct market everything. So there's less of a need to be certified. When people can talk to me directly about how I grow things, I still do organic methods. I'm committed to organic methods, but I'm not committed to doing the paperwork anymore.
Okay, going off of that, how did you market the pickup load of squash in your presentation?
Yeah, you like that. Yeah, we cured it. That went into CSA boxes. It went from and then after the CSA ended, it was still on the farm stand. So I sold it at the farm stand. We sold it at the farmer's market. We sold the CSA box when the CSA ended. I did sell a good load to the co-op, if you will. So, I do some stuff around farm finances, especially for specialty crop people, especially for people that do vegetables. If you want to be profitable, you want to have your level of production reach your level of sales. The ideal world is you sell everything. Even if you sell things at a discounted price, you sell everything, you're going to be profitable, right? And so even though that seemed like a lot of squash, by the time we hit November, I don't know, I had maybe 3 bushels sitting around that I didn't get sold, and that's not too bad.
Okay, another person would like to know a little bit more about liability insurance. And I
Mhm.
don't know if you want to do that in an email or if you have some thoughts on it. There's not
Yeah.
any detail to the question.
Yeah. Well, we should hit it. We got two questions here. So for our own operation, we have both liability insurance and product liability insurance. So those are the two major flavors. Regular liability insurance is oftentimes a rider to your existing farm policy. And so say anybody that does a U pick or something, well, you really need product, you really need liability insurance. This is somebody's on your farm, they break, sprain their ankle, all these kinds of things. You do events on farm, you really ought to think about liability insurance. Again, oftentimes that's done with who's ever doing your farm policy or your home policy. And my understanding, and I'm not Mr. Insurance, but I've been told by a number that the easiest thing is to get a rider onto your existing home policy that would cover anything that would relate to what's going on in your farm life. So I have people coming to this farm stand like hourly. So I made sure that I had enough coverage in consultation with my agent to make sure if anything went on out that farm stand, I'm covered, I'm good. And the second part is in product liability. Product liability is I could not get through my existing insurance person, but I went to a different insurance company, and there's some that that specialize in that. Certainly, the Minnesota Farmers Market Association has some product liability insurance, and their contacts with that company can also get you product liability insurance if you're concerned about that. I did find that through Farmers Union, my own Farmers Union agent. So there's some people that definitely specialize in product liability. Just Joe person that's doing homeowners might not, but it's always your first point of contact. So
Towards the end, we got a comment about Minnesota Grown offers 2 cost share programs to support Minnesota Grown members with marketing costs. And another, it would be nice if we had a place we could sell small quantities of extra versus going to a food shelf. Just a comment.
No, and I'll build off that comment. This is me, the salesperson, coming in here again. Build a customer list. Okay. I mean, I do this stuff around pricing at farmers markets, and it's a common issue. One of the worst things you can do in a farmers market situation is what we call variable pricing. It's like you feel this pressure, like I came here with all this stuff and I got 20% of it left or 30% of it left. If you don't have another outlet for it, you're under the gun, right? So some people just like, hey, man, last hour, like I'll sell those for half price kind of thing. And I say, no, don't do that. You're what you call cannibalizing your market. You're killing off your good market. Way better if you can get that list of, or build a list, whatever it takes to get that 4 to 6 people for that small amount of product that's left over from the market. Give them the discount, okay? But don't give them the discount at the farmer's market. Have them come to your place and pick up what's left, or do a box deal or something. Whatever it takes, you discounting the stuff that's left over, you have no other way of selling. It's fine to discount, but just don't discount it where you're doing most of your sales. Otherwise, you're going to kill your existing sales, if that makes sense. So
another suggestion going with that was to check out the food hubs in Minnesota.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
And then we have a question, what percent of your business is through the farm stand? Do you see CSA as largely necessary to make a small produce farm viable?
I would say it makes my farm viable. Again, I was trained for 2 years on a CSA. So for me to get in the CSA or start up a CSA just made a lot of sense. For us, I think about how the different outlets fit together, right? If we think about farm risk, and your ability to make sales, you're at most risk if you have just one. If you have one outlet, it's kind of like what I was just saying before. If you have one outlet, you're under a lot of risk. You're under a lot of pressure to make that one work. And if that doesn't work, you have a farmer's market where it rains, you got a problem. So if we have multiple outlets, like I do, CSA, farm stand, farmer's market, direct to grocery, direct to schools. Okay, I can find many other places to get that product sold. And so for me, 60% of our sales, for the most part, each year, probably for the last 15 years, has been CSA. I call that my base load, right? And so for some of you, you're like, hey, I do these 2 farmers markets and they're rock solid, and I've been there for 6 years. That might be your base load. But even if you have that kind of base load, your kind of main outlets, your main marketing channel, you might still have a secondary marketing channel. And that's where, like some mentioned, the food hubs, that might be a nice secondary marketing channel, or a small, again, just a list of people that are into inexpensive produce. That's fine too. You want to have those primary and secondary ones. So I don't think a CSA is necessary. But for me, it's been our base load, and we build everything else around that. That's how it works.
Okay. Information on how to start a farm stand, or do you just start? And they asked for contact information for the Secretary of State. What I came up with is newbusinessfiling.org. Let me search a little longer.
Yeah, let's
I realize that's
not, yeah. I don't.
It says, okay, misleading ad.
Yeah.
It says Minnesota Secretary of State, and then
no, don't
that's
get taken
what
by the
popped
ads, Rick. Yeah, Minnesota Secretary of State. If things wind down here, I can look it up quick and throw it in here. Yeah, Minnesota Secretary of State. Rick finds it, he'll throw it in there. It's called Certificate of Assumed Name. So I think you go Minnesota Secretary of State and you'll see it's like business, right? Like file a business kind of thing. And then there's different forms, like you can file an LLC, but at the very least, you can do a certificate of assumed name. You can go in there and also see if somebody has your chosen name, right? You're like, hey, I'm Tumbleweed Farm. I want to be Tumbleweed Farm. And you're looking like, somebody already is Tumbleweed Farm. Well, there goes that idea. Yeah. Oh, there you go. Thank you.
Assumed name is now $50.
$50. So starting a farm stand though, no, there's no, the only things I would think about in terms of like pre-work, one would be if you happen to be in sort of a township, or you're even in a city that has some kind of regulations or zoning issues, look at that first, right? Because you don't want to jump into it and then lo and behold, oh, we're sort of stuck and now the city's on my case, right? But short of that, I know Vermont Extension has a good guide on starting a farm stand. So if you go Vermont Extension farm stand, I think they have a nice extension fact sheet. I'm looking to do one here in Minnesota and to do some examples and stuff, because to me, I think a farm stand is a great way of selling product, and you don't have a lot of marketing cost. And I'm talking about an unmanned farm stand, right? And so, no, you can just start, if you go on my website, you'll see what kind of mine looks like. I do think it's important enough to say, some people try starting by just, it's really just a card table and a cooler. And I'm like, well, okay, if you want to be serious about it, I think you want to kick it up a notch above, the card table and the cooler, if you will. And so just even a simple framed farm stand starts to say like, hey, this is an official farm stand, people, I'm trying to do this. And you can start it small. My advice in the world of merchandising is it's better to be small and well stocked than large and not well stocked. That's just retailing 101, right? You go into a clothing store and it's half empty. You're like, I don't know, unless it's some fancy boutique, which you probably can't afford. You're like, I don't know, what's wrong with this place? Same if you went to a grocery store and half the shelves are empty. You're like, what? Is this thing going out of business or what? Better to be small and well stocked than too big and not well stocked. So Farm Stand 101.
We've got one here. When starting to sell beef from a farm, would you recommend selling wholes, halves, and quarters, or focusing on retail cuts at a farmer's market?
No, I really think wholes, halves, and quarters is a great place to start. I think it is the place to start. I've sold hogs, I've sold lamb, I've sold broilers for a while. I don't know why. I'm really not a good livestock person. I'm sure you are much better than I ever was. But I do think that's the easy entry point, right? Because it's the point at which you can be more assured of selling the animals that you've dedicated for direct marketing. It's that way to, a lot of people are used to that. You can sort of start getting your sea legs, and it's much easier to start saying, hey, I've got some quarters coming up here. Can you give me your contact information? I'll check back in with you later, kind of thing. And you can now start building up that customer list. And you can start building that on a Facebook or whatever way you can kind of get the word out. What I know from other livestock people that direct market is there's always these thornier issues of, okay, for retail cuts, I have to be at a USDA inspected plant. I have to have a set retail label. I get into some of these real details that you might be ready to take on. Great. But it's much easier to say, you know what? You go directly to the locker. They're going to walk you through the cuts. You don't have to get into all those details at this point. And you can start hanging out your shingle, if you will, right? Part of marketing is hanging out your shingle. It takes a little while for people to realize, hey, they sell beef. Hey, they sell vegetables. Hey, they do cut flowers. So in that way, you can kind of hang out your shingle and start doing that. And then as you sort of get your sea legs, you can start doing that, the piece thing. The other thing that I've learned is that a lot of times livestock operators are stuck with all these one sets of pieces that they can't move. Right? I can move the burger just fine, but I'm stuck on this chuck roast. What am I going to do with this thing now? And so you can get that feedback from those customers when you initially start doing quarters. What cuts did you like? What would you like more of? Was that a good size? This kind of stuff. And then you have greater insight to do pieces later. Okay.
Yeah,
One more, or
I think we're at the end of the questions.
Okay. Great.
I'll stop the recording.
Hey, sounds good.